All right, so that leads us straight into assignment 7. And assignment 7 is an employee database application. So here are the parameters for that. I want you to use nested dictionaries and custom functions to create an employee database program. And at minimum, it needs to allow you to add and remove employee records. It should include name, salary, and position title. It could have more than that. It could do more than that. You're always welcome to add or embellish on the basics, but as long as it does the basics, that's what I'm looking for. So I'm not going to just throw you out here into the world of nested dictionaries without any help. Let me get into a little bit of detail here. And I'm going to actually code a light version of, and by light, what I mean is it's minimal user interface, minimal error checking, that sort of thing, but a light version of the employee database. But instead of employee database, I'm going to create a program that keeps track of inventory for my fruit stand at the farmer's market. Okay, so it's got to keep track of the fruit. It's going to keep the fruit name, price, and quantity. It'll use a nested dictionary variable, and it'll have functions for adding fruit and removing the fruit. So I'm going to code through this. It'll be very stripped down. I'm hoping you add a little bit more user interface and a little bit more creativity to yours, but it should show you the basic mechanics of how I'm interacting with some of these nested dictionary pieces. So let's get straight into it. Okay, so here is my fruit nested dictionary. Okay, you can see it's got a key here that's made up FR1, FR2, FR3 for ID numbers for each fruit. Each fruit has a name, a price, and a quantity. The name is going to be a string, the price is a float, and the quantity is an integer. Okay, so those are all important aspects of my program. Okay, it's really good to organize your programs in a certain way. And the way I would recommend is you should always import if you're going to import any modules or libraries, do that first at the very top of your program. For this one, I'm not going to, but in the past when we've used Random or Turtle or some of those other ones, we want to put those at the top. The next thing you should do in your programs is define your major global variables. For this program, the major global variable is this dictionary because that has all my data in it. After that, the next thing you should do is define any custom functions that you create. And then the very last thing is to write your main program structure. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is define some custom functions. I am going to make one called list fruit first. And it's going to take a parameter of a dictionary object. Okay, so I'm creating one called list fruit. It's going to take a parameter of this, and it's just going to print out the fruit in my database in a relatively attractive way. I'll use that throughout the program later, so I'm going to create that first. I'm going to pass this into that parameter every time when I call it. So that way I know I'm using the freshest data. So I'm going to print out just the fruit, and I'm going to use a for loop for the fruit. No, I'm going to use a different one. I don't want to confuse people. The item in the main. Okay, so I'm going to whatever parameter I pass here is going to be a dictionary. It's going to go in here, and I'm going to say for each item in that. Now remember that returns the key. So I'm going to print ID and then the item. Okay, and then left justify in a string of 10, and I'll add some dots there. And then I'm going to add to that the name of the fruit. So I'm going to say, let's print the name, which is going to be D item. No, it's going to be D main, D item. That will select which fruit, right, for each item. That's going to be the key. So it'll give it that, and then it will return the whole array, which will give me the ability to say this, and I'll print that, and we're going to go I'm just going to have it list the fruit names and not the price and quantity here for now. Rjust, and we're going to go 15 on that. Okay, so let's test it. If I say list fruit and I give it dfruit as a parameter, let's run it and see what happens. Okay, oops, forgot something. I want those dots to continue over there. So run that again. There we go. Now I have it. It looks all nice and clean. It's got my FR1 is the banana, FR2 is the apple, and the kiwi. So I can use the ID number later on to refer to my fruit. And now, since that one's good, I know what it does. I can zip that up a little bit, and I can move on to another. And so what I'm going to do first is my add fruit function. So I need a function to add fruit. Add fruit. And again, I'm going to pass in a parameter of a dictionary object. And this is going to take a dictionary object as a parameter, and it's going to return the dictionary object with the new fruit added to it. Okay, so it's going to return D main. So whatever database I give this, it's going to take that in, it's going to add a new fruit to it, and then it'll send it back. So I'm going to replace this with the new version after it. And I'll show you how we do that in just a second. So the first thing I want to do is I need to get 4 pieces of information from the user to add a fruit. I need the ID number of the fruit, I need the name, I need the price, and I need the quantity. Now, if this was a really tight program, I would not let the user enter the ID number of the fruit. What I would do instead is I would have it automatically generate the ID number of the fruit. I mean, you can see the pattern here, FR1, FR2, FR3. That would be easy enough to write a little function that creates the next number in that sequence and uses that. But for the purpose of this, I'm trying to keep it really simple. I'm going to do something you should never do, which is allow the user to enter to decide what that ID number is going to be. So let's add that. Okay, so the ID number is going to be a string ID equals input, enter the new ID number. Then we've got another string for the name, input, enter the fruit name. Next up, the price is a float. So I'm going to say FL price equals input, enter the price. What do I need to do to make this right? Close. I need to change it to a float. You said put int in front of it, but I want to actually make it a float. So I'm going to nest that function, the input function, inside of the float function so that whatever they type is going to get converted to a float. Again, I'm leaving this pretty loose. That's not a great program because if they enter something other than a float, it's going to error out. But we're going to try and keep it simple because what we're focused on is working with that dictionary object. Okay, so we're just going to keep this simple. And then the last thing I want to do is int quantity, and I'm going to have to nest that in an int function. How many? Okay, so pretty minimal user interface here, but it'll be okay. So I have now 2 steps. The first step is I need to build this dictionary. Okay, so I need to create this dictionary, and then I'm going to add it using the ID number that I got from the user. So the first thing I need to do is I'm going to create something called dtemp, and the reason I'm calling it dtemp is because it's going to have a lifespan of about 1/100th of a second, and then it's going to go away. Only use for this is to create that piece and then add it. So it's just, it doesn't really matter what I call it, but whenever I'm using a variable like that that has a super short lifespan, I often use the word temp because then when I'm looking at it, I know what it's for. So it's a temporary object that's a dictionary, and it's going to have the fields name, price, and quantity. So we're going to have name is going to be str name that we just got from the user. Price is going to be the price, FL price, and quantity is going to be the quantity that we got. Okay, so we've created that innermost piece. Now what I need to do is add that as the value using this as the new key, add it to the D main. Okay, so I'm going to say D main, and then I'm going to say strid equals D temp. Okay, so that just adds that new line. Print your fruit we'll just go create a little F string here. Str name was added. All right, there we go. So this function, let's review, is going to take in the whole data structure as a parameter, and it's going to put it into D main. It's going to get input for the ID, the name, the price, and the quantity. And then it's going to take the name, price, and quantity and put them in a dictionary. It's going to take that dictionary and set it as the value where the strid that they entered is the key. So now we have a key and value pair added to D main. We give the message, and then we return the new structure with the new fruit added back. So when we use this, the way we would have to use this in a test scenario is D fruit equals add fruit D fruit. Okay, and the reason that we're doing this, self-assignment is what it's called, is that we're taking D fruit, we're sending it to the add fruit function where it gets the information from the user and adds it, and then it sends it back, and so we're putting it back in that same container. So then D fruit, if I list fruit after that, then I can see what was added. Let's run this and test out our new function. new ID number, FR4, guava, price, $3.98.23. Okay, so there is my new database with the guava added, and it seems to be working just the way we want it to. Okay, so that's good. The nice thing about doing these functions as black boxes like this is it makes testing really easy. You can write a function and test just that function, and then it will allow you to put it together in a meaningful way later on. So the last thing we want to do is remove fruit. And again, I'm giving it the same sort of function, and I'm going to return a new function at the end with that record removed. So now I just have to decide which record I want to remove. Now, if I want to remove a fruit, I have to show the user what's in there. So I'm actually gonna use a function inside my function here. Not add fruit, I'm gonna do list fruit. Okay, and I'm gonna give it the data structure that was given inside the function. Because remember, what happens in the function stays in the function. So it's gonna list the fruit, and then it's gonna say print which fruit do you want to remove? Okay, and then I'm going to go strid equals input, enter the ID here. So I'm asking the user to enter the ID, and presumably they're going to enter one of these. Now, we're not going to do any error checking. If they enter something that's not here, it's going to be an error, but we're not going to worry about that right now because we're just focused on getting this to be functional. So if they enter an ID, then I can use the remove function to remove that. I can use delete to remove it, but what I want to do is I'm actually going to use pop. And when I use pop, it's going to take this value and send it back so that I can then use it to tell the user what was removed. So if I want to do str, what am I doing? There we go. D removed equals dmain.pop, and I want to give it the strd that they just entered. So that's going to pop that dictionary and remove, or that object that's a dictionary and remove it, but it's going to put it in D removed. And then I can say print F, and then I can say D removed name if I use proper punctuation. Oh, here's something. Now notice, well, here, let me scroll this up a little bit so you can actually see what I'm looking at. Okay, so this is underlined, and this is underlined for only one reason. And the reason for that is that my original quote, my original text string here that was in double quotes, is having issues with the fact that I put double quotes inside this. And so what I need to do is, if I have double quotes for my original string on the outside, I need to alternate and put single quotes inside here. Otherwise, it thinks that this is a string that ends here, and that's why it causes an error from here over. Okay? So that's just a little side note to remember. But if I put single quotes in here, you'll see the error goes away. Was removed. And then let's get this guy back up here. There we go. So it asks which fruit you want to remove, then asks them to enter the ID. It uses the ID to pop one of those records into that dictionary. which is just the right-hand side. It's not the value. I mean, it's not the key and the value. It's just the value there, which is a dictionary object. And I use the name to print out that banana was removed or whatever. Let's test this out. So I'm going to do remove fruit. We're going to say dfruit is equal to remove fruit because we want to capture that when it comes back. Okay. And then we're going to list fruit one more time afterwards so we can double check that it was actually removed. Okay, so which fruit do you want to remove? I'm going to take out banana. Okay, and then there, banana was removed. You can see it returns the name because when I popped that and I referred to that name, then I can use that in a friendly way. Banana was removed, and here's the new fruit list. So all three of my functions are doing what they're supposed to. They all operate independently. And so now I can write a surprisingly simple program to wrap around these. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, let's print fruit stand and let's make it look a little fancy here. Times center 46. There we go. Let's do that. That's about how wide my thing should be. Let's look. Well, that's close enough. I'm just going to make it, I'm just going to use, here, let's make it a little bit bigger. 66. There we go. That's nice. Okay, so there's my fruit stand. Welcome. Let's say print, choose an option to continue. I'm going to use triple quotes here so that I can do more options. And I'll say one is list fruit. Two is add a fruit. Three is remove a fruit. And that'll do it. Actually, let's do it different here. Let's do four is quit. We haven't done it that way before. Let's do it. Okay, so there's that. And now I want str choice equals input. What do you want to do? Okay, so now you should be very familiar with a menu choice like this. Now I've got the welcome, I've got my choices, I'm getting input, it's a string. So now I just need a branching structure here. So I'm going to say if str choice equals 1, print, or let's just say list fruit, dfruit, elif, str choice equals 2, add fruit, dfruit, elif, str choice equals 3, remove fruit, elif, str choice equals 4, break, and I haven't put a loop in yet, so it's going to yell at me for a minute. And then else print, they print anything other than those. Please choose a number between 1 and 4. Okay, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to indent that whole thing, and I'm going to go while true. Okay, so that's the whole program, everybody. Once I've got the functions done, the program structure is super simple. And the nice thing about this is that I can focus on my indentation, the structure, the user interface, because I know that I've already figured out how the work gets done. And I figured it out in separate pieces that I can test each one individually by itself. So I know it's working. I know it does what it's supposed to. It works like a black box. This is a super clean program. Now, the only thing I could do to make it better is within the add fruit and the remove fruit, there's a lot of like error handling and checking and things that I could do to make it user proof, right? When they enter the ID number, maybe I could, instead of having them enter the ID number, I could have the ID number be generated automatically. That would be a good thing to do. The name, I might need to make sure that that's a viable fruit name somehow. I don't know. The price definitely needs to be a float. So they need to be able to enter a digits here. It doesn't have to be a float. They can enter 5 if it's $5, I guess. But the price needs to be a reasonable number that could be a price. And then the number has to be, this has to be an integer. So I could do some checking to prevent the user from breaking the program. But otherwise, it's a really clean program, and it's surprisingly short now that we break it up this way. So if we run this, now we've got our whole thing. So if I list the fruit, there's my fruit, and then it just goes straight back to the menu each time. Add a fruit, ID number FR4. What do I not have? Oranges. Your fruit oranges was added. If I list the fruit, you can see the oranges are there. I can remove a fruit. You can see that it was removed. And then when I'm done, I just hit quit and it exits the program. So it is surprisingly simple now. If we can break things up into really good functions that are black boxes that take parameters and give us something back that's meaningful, it's just really nice to be able to do that. So that is pretty much it. Okay. So I want you to take that and you can look at that code. It is already on module 7 in Canvas. Now, this may not be the exact same code because this one is the one I wrote yesterday, but it's pretty close. You can see it's got most of the same features here, but it's got those defined. And so what you can do with those is you can use this as a model for developing the employee database program.